Hey everyone and welcome back. I am going to dive into my lab today and do a Solver Says video and look at some 6max '08 spots after looking at previous comments on Solver Says videos and getting some feedback over spots you guys would be interested in seeing. It also gives me a chance to show off a few new features of the lab as I've been hard at work on a bit of an overhaul and some of the front-end functions have changed in the lab. But for now, let's look at some Limit '08 6max, and new has some expanded preflop nodes, including uh, the small blind can now call 3 bets cold here. So let's see, let's go ahead and pick a node from the Range Explorer to look at. And I think what we're going to look at is the small blind defense first, and then we'll look at some big blind defense. So if we first look at like a cutoff open raise and it folds to us in the small blind, we can go ahead and train this node. And first one's a very, very easy hand right off the bat, as we are basically always going to 3-bet aces. So I don't think there's too much to think about there. The second one here, however, is a little bit more interesting, as we now have a hand that is definitely too weak to play from a lot of positions, but in the small blind we do tend to play a lot of hands. And if we take a look at the Range Explorer, I'll give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about here. If we look at our overall strategy in this spot, notice that we are playing 16% calls and 19% 3-bets. So a lot more calling than most people probably are comfortable with in 6max '08, as people tend to play from the small blind a bit more of a raise or fold strategy. And we'll probably look at some individual hands in a bit, but for now, let's go ahead and decide what to do with this 2-3-4 queen. I'm leaning towards fold, but I won't be surprised if call is correct. Let's take a look. It looks like I made a mistake. A pretty reasonable sized mistake, actually. So losing 0.29 big blinds, and we can see that the best action was call. And if we go and look up this hand in the Range Explorer, we can try to figure out what's going on here. So we can see that I'm just underrating the hand a little bit. So again, I said we're basically playing 35% of our entire range in this spot, and Monker Solver rates this hand to be with a single suit basically in the mid-20s in terms of the EV percentile. So very playable hand. The only version of the hand that's folding is the Badugi. And if we look at more general, if we just look at like 2-3-4 in general, we are seeing very little folding, only 4.2% folding from these low 2-3-4 combos. If we make it a little bit worse, something like 3-4-5, no 2, no ace, still only 8.2. So these low 3 connected hands that can just make wheels or other strong low holdings do just tend to be a little bit better than I was first thinking. Let's look at a couple more, and then I'll move to some big blind defense. Okay, this is a different type of a hand combination with these middling cards and a suited ace. I again think this hand is a little bit too weak to play from the small blind. I know I'm supposed to be playing 35% here. The ace is tempting. A suited ace is always a pretty good card to see. Nevertheless, I think this is going to fall just outside the threshold, and we're going to fold. And it looks like I'm correct. Let's see how far out of the threshold it was. Oh, so it's pretty far off. So 47th percentile here. So we can see that these middling cards just don't fare particularly well in this circumstance, and the ace-7 isn't doing a ton for us. Okay, this one I'm very, very comfortable calling. We have an all-low hand with 3 clubs. I won't be totally shocked if raise is okay, but I think this is just a no-brainer call. And it looks like it was 100% pure call, and notice that raise is losing just a little bit of EV. So it's never a big mistake to re-raise with these kind of hands, but call looks to be the best play by far. Okay, this sort of a hand is a little bit more interesting. So it's a good hand, ace-3, pair of 6s, and a small 2 flush. So I want to 3-bet this one, and I'm thinking it's because the 6s have some value in a heads-up pot, and they go way down in value in a multi-way pot. So this sort of hand strikes me as the sort of hand that is going to be happy to try to get the big blind to fold. So let's see if I'm right about that. It looks like I am correct, and now we can see that it was a little bit better to, 0.04 better to raise. And if we go and look at these kind of hands, I think this is like a kind of an interesting hand combination. Notice that we're basically only calling with the very weakest versions of them, the Badugi. And if we just look at like something like, I don't know, ace, wheel, and then low, let's see if we can kind of filter this. And then if we go extras, has pair, yes. That's going to give us all aces, so let's do not ace. So now we have ace, wheel, low, plus pair, and not aces. And Yeah, so we are doing a bunch of calling and a bunch of raising. Um, I wonder if there's any sort of a method. Just we can look at the charts to sort of give us a bit of an indication here. If maybe there's like a pattern that we can figure out here. And one of the things I notice is double suited is just re-raising for pure value, so the double suited hands just want to play bigger pots. And then a lot of the single suiteds are raising, so most of our calls are coming from bad suits. The triple suits a little bit more, and the rainbow basically only ever calling or folding, which makes sense. Those hands are just weaker, out of position, don't want to play a big pot. So no obvious pattern here, I think, if we kind of like just float through the table here. I mean, there's 224 hands that fit this category, so we can see that all the ace deuce small pair hands are three betting with these double suited versions. These are the best versions of the hand. And then you start to mix calls as you get to some single suited versions that are a little bit weaker. So kind of what I was expecting. Not a huge difference in EV loss. I mean, we could also like look to see if there's any ones that are really substantial EV loss. And really the only big EV losses are playing these well, these are just the worst possible hands ever. These like Badugis with a bad pair and a bad ace and low. So ace 4 4 8 Badugi, ace 5 8 8 Badugi. These are just too weak to play. All right, let's get rid of the filters and take a quick look at a slightly different node. So maybe let's look at, um, let's say, big blind defense now against the button. And we can take a quick note of our global strategy here. Notice that we're folding 11.5%. My Sims don't have rakes, so this is a this is like the GTO range with no rake, like a tournament situation. In a raked environment, you'd obviously have to play a little bit tighter than this. Also, note that we're 3-betting only 12% out of the big blind. We really just want to call with a ton of hands here and protect our range a little bit, but still 12% 3-bet. It's not nothing. We have to find those hands. So let's take some big blind defense against the button raise here. And the first one's definitely tempting to 3-bet. In general, when you have an ace in your hand, it's never that bad of an idea to 3-bet out of the big blind. But I think this one's close. It's got a suited queen. It's got 3 Broadways, which is always pretty strong. I'm going to go ahead and trust my instinct and 3-bet this one. And it looks like it was a actually a pretty medium-sized mistake to 3-bet. It's a small mistake, but I think losing 0.1 big blinds here is kind of a decent-sized mistake here. 41st percentile. So again, overrating the lack of a suited ace. Yeah, not getting these ones quite right here. Let's take a look. Even the best versions of the hand, even the double suited, are only calling. So the ace 7 is just not strong enough to 3-bet here. That's the takeaway from this one, is that I just way overplayed the hand. Okay, a very weak hand here. So now obviously 5 6 8 10 Badugi, we're between call and fold. I think, however, with the 5 6 8 being somewhat connected, this hand's still good enough to call with 3 low cards. I don't love it. It looks like, yeah, okay, so how big of a mistake would it be to fold? Yeah, it's only losing 0.03 to fold, so it was definitely not a huge deal, but it was correct. Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7 double suited. I want to 3-bet this one. This is kind of where our bad 3-bets come from. We can sort of pretend that we have a stronger hand than we do, and these like connected, zero gapper double suited hands typically are where you'll find some aggressive raises from. It looks like raise and call were basically equal in EV here, so no big deal. All right, very weak hand here, 3 3 8 9 with the suits. The small pairs are always very bad. I think I've mentioned this in previous videos. I'm going to fold this one. I won't be totally shocked if it's a play, but we are folding 11.5% here. Yeah, it's a fold. Okay, then this hand is 96 percentile, guys. This hand's very bad. Small pair with no other really connection going on. Very, very weak. 3 7 9 queen with a suited queen. Not much, but enough to call. Ooh, it's a mistake. Oh, I overrated this hand. Wow. It only loses 0.03, so it's not a huge deal, but I'm actually slightly surprised here. I would have thought that this hand would be enough, but it is 91st percentile. So the 3-7, again, just too weak for low. Okay, this one's a no-brainer call. Not good enough to raise. It's not a very good hand, but double suited's never folding. Oh, single suited but connected. Again, call. Really no decision here. This one's very weak, but I think maybe the 7-5 is better than the 7-3 because it's a little more connected. Let's see if that's the case. It does appear to be a significantly better hand. So this one's only 80th percentile. That's nothing special, but notice that it's like 11 percentile better than the other one. 7-7-5-3 and heads up 08, this hand could maybe 3-bet it, but in ring it's just going to call. And this one's very weak. So the 3 high, 1 low, very, very weak in general. The only thing this one has going for it is that all 4 cards are somewhat connected. The 6 is at least interacting a little, but I still think this one's too weak. Looks like no, but it basically trivial mistake. I lost 0.02, should have called, 91st percentile, very, very borderline, so no big deal. Okay, ace, deuce, 3, 6, this one could obviously 3-bet, this one could call. I think with the all-low connection and a 3 flush, I'm just going to go ahead and call. Let's see if it was a big difference. Yeah, it's losing 0.02 to 3-bet. So again, what we see is the pattern of the day is that these low hands can never be too big of a mistake to play aggressively, but it's not necessary with some of them either, so you can see it can go either way. I've made a bunch of small and medium mistakes so far in this training session, nothing too substantial. Hey, I got this 2-3-4 combo again. This one's a little bit of a different situation because now we're in the big blind, so I think it's just a pure call. Double suited versions of it would maybe re-raise. Let's just go ahead and check that to see if my intuition is right, that sometimes the double-suited ones can 3-bet, and I'm wrong. Even the double-suited ones are only calling, but again, look, 0.02, tiny, tiny, tiny mistake to 3-bet. So no big deal whatsoever. Let's take two more. Big blind defense here. Again, just an easy call. We've already seen this ace-7 combo is not particularly strong. Yeah, and it's the 56% L. So it's a good bit better just having an ace and an ace-7. Okay, very, very weak. This one we saw the queen 10 9-6 was like basically borderline. This one's going to be worse with the 4. Let's fold. King Queen Jack 5. Okay, so again, very weak, but the King Queen Jack is a little bit stronger, so I'm not totally sure about folding this one. I think I'm going to call, but I won't be surprised if I'm blundering here. Okay, so it is a little bit stronger, so 86 percentile because the King Queen Jack is more connected to itself. So I'm basically playing a 3-card hand, but those 3 cards are at least a little bit better. King 7 6 deuce, double suited, easy call, not strong enough to 3-bet, I think, even with double suited. I don't think 3-bet would be like a massive disaster. But it is pretty substantial here. You lose 0.08 3-betting this hand, so, you know, pretty clear call. And now this is a high-only hand. This is the sort of hand I think will definitely just call. I do think that these hands sometimes get overplayed, especially by PLO players. Let's see. Yeah, so again, this would be, look at a much, much bigger mistake to 3-bet this hand because it's high-only. So there's just a bunch of flop textures where you're not going to want to be playing a 3-bet pot with this sort of high-only hand. All right, we're doing pretty well in this session. We made 4 mistakes, but they've all been very, very small mistakes. The biggest EV loss was the medium mistake where I wanted to, the very first hand actually, where I wanted to fold that 2-3-4 queen in the small blind. But overall, pretty happy that my blind defense went okay here, looking through some training hands. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what questions you have. Happy to go through these some more. It always helps me to practice my 6-max 08, a game that we play quite often in any sort of a cash game or tournament situation, a very popular game. And I like studying the 6-max sim because it's a little bit more robust than sometimes the 9-max, as in these larger game trees, you can't exactly fit as much info in on the 9-handed games. So 6-max 08 is where I spend most of my time training if I'm training Ring 08, and it comes in handy for all sorts of cash games and tournament situations. See you guys in the comments. Let me know what you think. Talk to you soon. Thanks.